There are so many AI tools coming out at the moment, it's genuinely hard to keep up. So once a month, I'm going to be ranking the top tools to let you know what's worth your money and what isn't. So let's jump into the month of April. So it's pretty standard tier list setup. We've got S is the best, D is the worst, and then A, B, C sort of fitting in the middle. In terms of the tools that we're actually going to be ranking, I put them into groups just to make comparing them a little bit easier. So, we've got our chatbots, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and we've got our coding agents, our image and design models, our video models, and finally our voice and avatar models that sort of go hand in hand with one another. In terms of the actual ranking, I'm going to do it through two lenses. The first is sort of comparing them within their group. So ChatGPT, weighing up against Gemini, weighing up against Claude, and then sort of AI landscape in general. So I'm not going to put something in S tier, S tier chatbot when Claude Code may be able to do the same thing, half the time. So let's jump into it and start ranking. So the first one that we've got here is ChatGPT. Everybody's probably heard of ChatGPT or uses it themselves. It's really been the leader for the best part of 5 years. It's only really been the last few months where Gemini and Claude have sort of edged it out for a period of time. Claude's obviously got some cool functionality with Claude Cowork now and Claude Code for the developers out there. So, with the 5.5 release last month, it's, still shows that it's a force to be reckoned with. It's still sitting right at the top, and I'm going to put it in the A tier. So the next one we've got is Gemini, and I think if you're going to use a daily chatbot, and you're only going to pay for one, it's probably got to still be Gemini. They've obviously got their Nano Banana integrated into it, really generous with the limits that they give you on the Pro plan. Handles your text, your image, and your video input. They have been a bit quiet in April, but I think they're still right up there. Pretty much on par with ChatGPT at the moment, so you could probably go with either. So I'm going to put Gemini next to ChatGPT in the A tier. So the next one is Claude. Claude's probably the one that's been in the media the most recently. They've done so much with their Claude Cowork updates and their Claude Code, but in this case, we're just talking about the chatbot. And to be honest, the price, it's a little bit heavy. You don't get great usage. They don't have a frontier image model. Most of their work is probably more on the programming and the agent side of things with their Cowork and Claude. So I think their actual chatbot interface that they haven't put as much effort into recently, and that's why I'm going to put it in C tier. DeepSeek is the next one. It's an interesting one. I think it shot to fame last year, showed that China is really making a play in this space. I actually haven't spent too much time using the DeepSeek model recently. I tried it out, a while back when there was so much hype around it. But it's very, very cheap. So I think, if that shows the direction we're going in terms of pricing, I think it's certainly one to keep an eye on. It's not frontier at the moment. It's not, lagging too far behind. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. Next, we've got Grok. And I think Grok struggled. It really has struggled sort of the last 6 to 12 months to keep up with those other frontier models. I think we were going to expect big things, being Elon's backing there financially, but it's behind the others in terms of their image models, programming wise, and really, unless you're someone that's sitting on Twitter all day, it's probably not really a model for you. So I'm going to put that in C tier. So next up, we've got Llama 4, which is Meta's open source model. I, again, haven't really used this model a whole heap. I've just been sort of keeping up on the news around it. The Scout model does have 10 million token context, which is pretty impressive. It's not going to be your model that you use daily. It's probably more for the builders, the people using the API to create sort of local projects, security sort of things like that. So for me, I'm going to put it in B tier. So again, we've got another open source competitor, which is Qwen at 3.6. Similar to DeepSeek, haven't spent too much time on the Chinese models. But this is definitely one to keep an eye on because it is quite cheap and the parameters are extremely large. But for now, it's not a frontier model or anything like that. Probably not really a daily driver in terms of chatbots. So for now, I'm going to put that in C tier. So the next one we've got is Perplexity, and Perplexity is actually a really interesting one. Chatbot, it's probably towards the bottom, but they've got some niche use cases. So they've brought out their Comet browser, which is an AI first browser, and it's certainly a direction I think we're going for. having AI at the heart of all of our browsers, our search engines, is an interesting play for them. And then they've also got the computer use, which they sort of their own version of the co-work sort of environment where, it can take control of your computer, do actual tasks for you. So in terms of a chatbot, not great, not frontier or anything like that, but certainly some niche use cases. So I'm going to put this at the start of the CTR. So that rounds out our chatbot section. I don't think there's any real surprises there. We've got ChatGPT and Gemini right at the top. They've been edging each other out for a while now. Claude is an interesting one, but then again, I think it's in C tier because most of their focus has been on the Claude Code and the co-work side of things, which we'll get to in the coding section. I am going to try to do one of these videos every single month. There's always so much movement in the AI landscape. There's new tools coming out. There's tools actually fading off. So if you are interested, definitely subscribe and keep an eye out for the next video. So we'll jump into the next one. So this is probably the most interesting part of the video. Coding, AI coding, over the last 6 months has just absolutely blown up. The whole notion of vibe coding, where anybody can sort of watch a few tutorials and be able to create their own apps, their own websites. And then, these recurring events, these workflows have really opened up possibilities for businesses, and individuals to really, take their work and optimize to the next level. So we'll jump into it now. So the first one we've got is Claude Code. And if there is any tool here that is worthy of S, I think it'd be Claude Code. It's really no question what you can actually do with this tool. It is quite expensive. I think that's probably the only downside. You can't really build a whole lot with your $20 a month pro plan. You actually need to be paying for that 5 times usage, $180 plan, or again, that, close to $400 plan, which gives you that 20x usage. So, what you can build with it is amazing, and it's only getting better each day. They're shipping new updates constantly. So for that reason, that is going in the S tier. So alongside Claude Code, we have Claude Co-work, which is a new addition this month. It's sort of Anthropic's version of a Claude Code without the actual coding. So, you can still do similar sort of stuff, but it's more friendly for non-technical users. So probably sits a little bit between Claude Code and the regular Claude chatbot. It's pretty cool because you can plug in connectors, connect to your Google Drive, see your emails, set up tasks, recurring events. So it's definitely moving more towards doing things and less just back and forth chatting. This is a big one for businesses because it lets them start trialing these things without, needing to let it dive fully into their code, into their sort of technical environments, but start seeing these real benefits to using it. I think this one probably sits comfortably in the A tier. Next up, we've got Codex, and Codex has released a really impressive update in April. Alongside that GPT 5.5 model improvement, it really sits on level with Claude Code, maybe slightly less impressive, but very much equal. And unless you're using it on a daily basis at a really high level, you're probably not going to notice the difference between the two. The interface gives you all those connectors that I mentioned for co-work. So you those agentic workflows, your browser, your computer use, really powerful tool. So it's like you choose either Claude Code or Codex and both will do you just fine. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting this one in the S tier with Claude Code. Next one we've got is Anti-Gravity, and Anti-Gravity is probably more pretty than anything. It's an AI powered IDE, so similar to your cursors and your Visual Studios, but really it's okay. It really just filters in these other more powerful models into sort of this platform. It is quite nice to use, quite pretty, I guess, but yeah, not a standout, not super impressive or anything like that. You can use all the other ones just the same, no extra features or anything like that. So for that reason, this one is going to go into B. The next one is GitHub Copilot. I actually forgot this was on the board. They did ship a big update in April, which is pretty cool. I did try it in the really early stages of its release, and it was pretty cool. But nothing that sort of Claude Code, ChatGPT, Codex can't already do. It's got some pretty interesting native sort of features within the GitHub environment itself with these debugger agentic type workflows, but nothing special. It's certainly one to keep an eye on because I think Microsoft is slowly making a play in this space, but for now, it's probably C tier. Cursor is really, really good. It's probably the one that everyone was really using before Claude Code. It's sort of opened our eyes to what was possible in this sort of AI agentic coding type of environment. It's still okay. It really just feeds in the other models now. They do have their Composer 2, which was released not too long ago, which is quite cheap. So if you want to do like small little tasks, edits to websites and don't have the technical knowledge to do that, it might be worth doing. It's probably one where you can actually, have Cursor and have Claude Code sort of running within that one cursor window. So you can, use one or the other. If you do have a niche use case where you want to use the Composer model to make some fixes, then it's right there to do that. So for that reason, I'm going to put that in the A tier. So we've got OpenClaw, and OpenClaw was just an absolute viral moment earlier this year where, it really opened up what was possible in regard to sort of these agentic workflows, things running automatically in the background or just, via your Telegram channels and that sort of thing to really do things automatically. Recently, Claude has revoked that sort of usage around their Pro and Max plans. So it's, now you can only use pay as you go. So that's sort of, increased the cost of these OpenClaw users. Claude Code and Cowork and Codex have all made huge improvements in April. And it's probably, sort of cut OpenClaw off a little bit. It's moved into their space quite quickly. And I think it really has kind of detracted from the value of OpenClaw. So I probably am going to have to put this in D tier, our first D tier tool. Paperclip is a really cool concept, and it's growing. It is really getting some traction, and I think the whole concept of having these AI employees, this whole AI organization where you've got your delegation, you've got your different sort of departments, agents, handling various parts of the business, is certainly something that we are moving to quite quickly. Not frontier or anything, not unless you're a massive business that's got a huge amount of money to invest in this sort of thing. It's probably not one that you're going to be using on a daily basis, but still really interesting and pretty cool if you can set it up right. So for that reason, I'm going to put this in B tier. Open Code is one of those other open source models, similar to sort of Claude Code. So it's your open source version of Claude Code. I haven't spent long enough in it to really, I guess, have a complete understanding of the capabilities. But yeah, it's interesting to have an open source like Claude Code. So if you do need super enhanced security for whatever industry you may be in, it's certainly there as an alternative. You're not going to get the kind of quality and results that Claude Code has or Codex. But it is one to keep an eye on because I think open source will start catching up in this sort of programmatic space. But yeah, not quite top of the range just yet. Lovable, yeah, look, it's probably not really one that people are using anymore because you have Claude Code and Codex. But on those niche cases where you don't know what you want to do for a website, you might get started in Lovable and then move it across to Claude Code, or really just sort of an inspiration place rather than actually spending a whole lot of time in it, especially when you can do it for cheaper in other platforms. Exactly the same for Bolt as well, so I'm going to put that in D tier as well. V0 is Vercel's sort of component builder, AI component builder, and it's pretty similar to like your Lovables and your Bolts, except it probably has a few more niche use cases because it is very AI, component React sort of related. So there is a few more niche use cases rather than just this generic, website builder. So for that reason, I'm going to put this one slightly higher in the C tier. These agentic, coding, autonomous building platforms, I probably struggle to sort of understand how they're going to take, customers away from the likes of Claude Code and Codex because, sort of anything that they can do, Claude Code can do as well, and probably for a better price. They just have, scale. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting Replit Agent and Manus in D tier. Gemini CLI, it's probably one of the least popular in here. It's probably more for Google, associates, employees, partners than anything else. I haven't really used it a whole lot, but I am going to put it in D tier. N8N was probably the first time where workflows, like these AI-powered workflows, started to become so popular, and that sort of started the whole Claude code and the co-work sort of, train of thought. It really did die off because you could start doing that within those new coding agents platforms, Claude Code, Codex. It has made a little bit of a return. There's some niche use cases. I think they had an update in April where you can sort of visualize things a little bit easier with their workflow builder. But, really you can do the same thing in Claude Code. So I am going to be putting that in B tier. Next up, we've got Make and Zapier, really very similar to each other. This sort of workflow builder, again, very similar to N8N. So those three are pretty much all sort of working in the same space. Nice way to visualize things logically, and you can sort of step through what you're trying to build. But again, as we move with the Claude Code and the Codex, it's probably just easier to build it within there rather than going over to these platforms separately. I think there's more limitation in what you can build in these other ones. So for that reason, I think they're probably a little bit worse than N8N at the moment. So I'm going to put them in C tier. There's still some unique use cases, and if you are using them, they may do well for you. But I don't think there's any real need to jump over to those platforms now. So that rounds out our coding agents. So I don't think there's any surprises in that one either, that Claude Code and Codex are right at the top. There probably is a surprise with OpenClaw being right down the bottom. They took all the hype. So did Lovable with their sort of automatic website builder. They've really dropped off. So I think this is probably a case of the big guys squishing out some of those other competitors, which we have seen so often in this industry. These startups are just getting pushed out so quickly. These big companies are just shipping so consistently now. Which is making it difficult for these smaller companies, but that is where the landscape sits in terms of coding agents. Next up, we've got the image and design agents, and the first one we have here is Claude Design. Claude Design was released in April as sort of a competitor to Google Stitch, which became pretty popular with UI design. Taking UI design a little bit more seriously than just putting in prompts in Claude Code and hoping for the best. You're actually able to see different variations, work with those elements, get color palettes, typography all sorted before you move into those sort of functional elements when you move into your code editors. Claude Design is amazing. So many cool features, and the outputs are amazing, like really, really good quality. I think the big drag on that at the moment is just how small the limits are. I believe they're scaling all to the pro users, and like after 5 or 6 prompts, you're out for the whole week. So it doesn't even reset daily, you're actually out for the whole week. Which is annoying, because if you don't get it right pretty much on those first few prompts, which most people probably aren't going to, then you're waiting a week to get involved again. And I don't even think there is a pay on demand sort of system with Claude Design at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be amazing if they keep heading in that direction. I just think they need to work out their limits first. So I'm going to put that in A tier. It probably would have gone in S tier if the limits were really generous. Our next image and design model is Midjourney version 8.1. Midjourney was really, really popular, and then other models sort of started taking over it, especially in like the realism side of things. You have your Nano Bananas and then your GPT Image 2s taking over. I think it's got a real niche sort of use case. Those like more artistic sort of fantasy type images are really, really impressive. But then again, it's probably not something that I couldn't create just as well in your GPT Image 2 or your Nano Banana models. So for that reason, I'm probably going to put that in the start of the C tier. Flux is really just middle of the range. Nothing super impressive. I think it's okay. Like the outputs aren't terrible. It's really good, well priced. It's not expensive, so it's got some niche use cases. It's not frontier by any stretch, and it's not terrible. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting that one in C tier. Next up, we've got Foul AI. Now this is probably more of a website, a platform, rather than a specific model, but it is really, really impressive, because you have access to all of these frontier models on demand via one single API. The docs are super easy to use. They've always got the latest releases, so you can always keep an eye on what niche sort of models are coming through that you can try without sort of paying monthly subscriptions. It's super easy to set up. So, you can get your Nano Banana 2 through there, your GPT images, if you want everything all in one space. It's pretty well priced. Obviously, they add their premium to those other models, but in terms of convenience, it's actually really, really good. And it's certainly one that I use, for my different apps, websites where I need to bring in APIs. It works really, really well. So for that reason, I'm going to put that in A tier. Then our final two is Nano Banana and GPT Images 2, which has been released quite recently in April. Previously Nano Banana was just dominating everything. It was the best image model by an absolute mile. And it still is at the top. However, GPT Images is right there with it. They made a huge leap in terms of their image outputs. So for that reason, both of these image models are going to go into S tier. So that rounds out all our image models. We have two new additions to the S tier, Nano Banana and GPT Images are both incredible. Everything that you're probably scrolling through on Instagram and that sort of stuff has probably been created with GPT Image or Nano Banana. Most people probably can't even tell the difference whether it's real or not. So super, super impressive. We had a few other ones that sat in the C tier, Midjourney and Flux, really cool products, cool interfaces, but more, niche use cases, community driven, interesting to see what other people are building, but not frontier. So next up, we've got video, and looking back 12 months ago, we probably wouldn't even had video as a category. They really weren't good enough to really be worth creating a category for, but now they have been really impressive, especially with like your latest versions of Kling and Seed Dance, which have just absolutely blown everyone away on social media. So let's get into it. The first one we've got here is Kling 3.0, and Kling is really, really impressive. It's well priced, and it creates great videos, like nothing, amazing, but really solid. And, there's plenty of people out there that wouldn't be able to tell the difference between, Kling and a real video. So yeah, definitely holds its own in the video tier. So for that reason, I'm going to be moving that up into A tier. The next one we've got is Veo 3.1, which has been out for a while now. It's quite expensive, for what the outputs that it produces are like. It's not really one that I would choose over Kling or Seed Dance. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting that in C tier. Runway, I actually haven't used this model a whole heap. I've heard it is really, really impressive. However, the price is a bit of a downfall. So hopefully they can work on their pricing, and then we can see it move up to that S and A tier. But for now, that's going to go in the B tier. Now we have Seed Dance 2.0, and to be honest, it is the best model here by an absolute mile. The video outputs are just absolutely incredible. I think it's blown everyone away on social media. Pretty much every single video that you scroll through on, TikTok or Instagram, all those reels are most likely done with Seed Dance, and it is very, very difficult to see a real video versus Seed Dance and be able to tell the difference. All your UGC sort of content that people are creating these days, created with Seed Dance. So for that reason, it is definitely S tier, right at the front. Now, thanks for sticking with me this long. The final category that we've got is voice and avatars, and I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. 11 Labs is the first one that we've got here, and it has been a voice leader since pretty much the beginning, and they have been doing a great job. They've made an $11 billion valuation in the early 2026, a few new features on their platform. Their voice cloning, their professional voice clones are getting crazy, and it's pretty scary what the scammers will do with that sort of stuff. But an amazing model, not quite human-like yet, and the reason why I'm going to put that in A tier is because of that. But still, a huge leap forward in terms of voice agent. Now, HeyGen is more avatar creation than just raw voice. They recently released their version 5, which is really, really impressive. There's plenty of YouTubers and TikTokers and those short form content creators that are using HeyGen to actually replicate themselves, so they're obviously not having to make as much content than they usually would. They've got their workflow sort of on autopilot, which is, it's pretty impressive that they're able to do that, and their audience, is not able to tell the difference, or maybe they do and they're okay with it because the quality is great. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. It's not quite good enough to go in S tier. You still, like, it's still got its tells, the mouth, the lip syncing can be a little bit off, but it's doing really well. Next up, we've got Synthesia. Synthesia was very much targeting sort of the business, like training type videos. They're still sort of working in that space. I think that they're probably going to struggle a little bit because they've, HeyGen is leading this space by quite a margin, and then you've got your voice for 11 Labs. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going to sort of fit into the landscape at the moment. They're not a frontier leader. I don't think there's a whole heap of people using Synthesia just at the moment. They were very popular when they first came out, but I think, as these other competitors have moved forward, they haven't really made a whole heap of progress. But that might change. So for that reason, I'm going to put that in C tier. So the next one we've got is Hedra, it's a really cool product. They're also working in that AI clone avatar sort of space, similar to HeyGen. Really impressive website. The user interface is great. Really clean product. But in terms of performance, HeyGen just outshines them a little bit at the moment. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting this one in the C tier. And lucky last is Tavis, which is an avatar voice program, again, like a bit of a hybrid between 11 Labs and HeyGen. Once again, really, really cool website. In terms of the quality, in terms of the voice, it sits a little bit behind 11 Labs and HeyGen on the avatar realism sort of front. They're going a little bit more of like a deploy AI humans sort of rhetoric, which is it's interesting, and I think that's what we've seen a lot of, these AI sort of human agents sort of happening. But yeah, not frontier by any stretch at the moment. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting this one in C tier too. And that rounds out our list for April. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time for our May rankings.